What's up and welcome back to my channel. My name's Olivia and today we're going to be talking all about the probably most misunderstood stage of labor in birth. This is the stage of labor that a lot of things can go left. You can incur a lot of physical and emotional trauma that is unnecessary, and it is the pushing stage. So if you are of the thought process where you believe that babies need to be pushed out, that you need to hike your legs up and close your mouth and bear down and for 10 seconds and then do it again, then you need to watch this video. So the type of pushing that we see in movies and in hospitals, where you put your legs up into stirrups, you grab onto the back of your thighs, you bear down and push with your face all scrunched up. This is called directed pushing or Valsalva pushing. Now, although this is really normal to us here in the States in 2019, this type of pushing did not come into practice until the 1920s. So that means we've only been doing this type of directed pushing since 1920. Not that somebody in the comments can do the math and leave it down below, but not that long. So now you may be wondering, well, why did we start doing directed pushing? And it all has to do with fear. So back in the 1920s, before we had a lot of research surrounding birth, and after the medical paradigm took over midwifery and took over birth, medical doctors, mostly male doctors, felt that the pushing stage, or the stage between dilation and the baby actually being born, was unsafe. And so in order to mitigate the unsafety of labor itself, they tried to speed up the process by telling women to start pushing, actively pushing their babies out. Now, you may be wondering, what's the alternative? If all I've seen is people being told, okay, hold your breath and push down and push this baby out, what's the other way of getting the baby out? And that would be essentially allowing your uterus to push the baby out and do all of the work, instead of you consciously using all of the other muscles that you have to push the baby out. In this video, we're gonna dive deep into understanding why it is so beneficial to not be directed to push and to allow your body to push the baby out all on its own. Now, I want to take a pause here and say that what I am addressing is a low risk, non-emergency birth situation. If there are any type of emergency, a clear issue where baby needs to come out immediately, and you're already fully dilated, maybe they can even see the head, and you know, okay, baby is under stress, but the baby is right here, so the baby needs to come out as quickly as possible. Of course, in that scenario, directed pushing would be your best bet, because even a C-section may take too long versus just really just pushing that baby out. So everything in this video I am addressing toward a non-emergency situation. All right, let's move forward. Let's first address the rhythm of labor. So during the dilation process, during active labor, your uterus is contracting and it's pulling up. And it's pulling up in order to open the cervix, because the cervix is at the bottom of the uterus. The muscles are contracting upward in order to open up the cervix to allow the baby's head to come through. A really great visual of this is an upside down balloon. The top of the balloon is nice and big, the bottom of the balloon is really small, and so we have to open up the cervix to allow baby's head to come through. Now, the second part of that process is the uterus switching from pulling up to the uterus pushing down. Once the cervix is completely dilated, the uterus can start pushing the baby down and out. Now, there can be a pause between the uterus pulling up and opening the cervix and the uterus pushing down to send the baby out. And WHAPIO, who is a traditional midwife, has a very great explanation of this. She calls it the rest and be thankful stage, or the quietude, because she likens it to climbing a mountain. Okay, let's just say it's a really tall mountain, and you get, you spend all this time going up the mountain, going up the mountain, going up the mountain, and you finally get to the top, and it's beautiful, it's amazing, you've never seen anything like it, but you're also really, really tired because you had to work super hard to get to the top of that mountain. Now, most people, when they get to the top of the mountain and they see the view, they're gonna stop, they're gonna rest, and they're gonna be thankful before they go back down the mountain. Nobody climbs a big, huge mountain and is like, okay, we got to the top, we've been here for about 2 minutes, let's start heading back down. If it took you hours to get up there, you're gonna pause for a minute, drink some water, rest, take a breath, take in the view. And so essentially, once the uterus has done all of that work to dilate and get the cervix open and ready to allow the baby to pass through, there's this understanding that maybe the uterus needs to, number one, take a rest. Number two, give the birthing person a rest in order to prepare themselves for the intensity of the baby coming out. And then there's also the idea that the uterus might be recalibrating itself, right? It's going from one motion to another. So there's the resting and the recalibrating to go into the next stage. Now, in a typical medicalized environment where the provider looks at birth in a medical way, we skip over this stage. And a lot of women get diagnosed with having a failure to progress or a stall in labor, and so maybe they get checked, they say, well, I'm not really contracting anymore, or maybe the doctor comes in and they see like, oh, we're looking at the monitor and you're not having any contractions, let's check you. We get the check, we get the exam, they confirm that you're 10 centimeters dilated, and they say, oh, it's time to push. Now, I will say that things are beginning to change in the hospitals, but a majority of hospital births that I see, this is what happens. So they say, you're 10 centimeters, let's start pushing, right? Not understanding or not being of the school of thought that the body will begin to push when it is ready. When you allow the body to have this resting period, what it does is it gives the baby a chance to passively descend. Now, you have to remember that just because the cervix is open at 10 centimeters does not mean the baby is just gonna fall through, right? The baby is doing very specific cardinal movements in order to navigate the internal passageways, basically navigating, getting from the uterus to the entrance of the pelvis, through the canal, and then eventually out, right? And so that takes time for the baby to navigate each position and moving down. Now, if you start pushing right at 10 centimeters, the baby might still be high up. So you're effectively pushing the baby down, but you don't necessarily need to do this because you can allow something called passive descent when you are not actively pushing, so the baby is able to passively descend down. This is great when you are in some sort of an upright position or you're kind of leaning over, and it encourages through gravity for the baby to get lower and lower into the pelvis, into the vaginal canal. Now, if you skip this phase and push without any strong contractions or without letting the baby passively descend, what happens is you can really tire yourself out unnecessarily. When people are given the chance to rest instead of start pushing without strong contractions, it increases the incidence of spontaneous vaginal birth, which is great. and it reduces the risk of instrument-assisted birth, which is birth via forceps or birth most likely now via vacuum assistance. It also decreases active pushing time. So taking the moment to rest, even if you are 10 centimeters dilated, is statistically going to improve your birth experience. So the takeaway here is, do not push if you do not feel the urge to push. Do not push if there are no contractions or not very strong contractions. Take the break and breathe. You are allowed to take a break during labor. Your body has literally built in a time out for you, and you should most definitely take it. Now let's talk about directing a person to push. So like I said before, normally we see women are laid back, legs up, mouth closed, eyes closed, face squinched up, pushing, holding their breath for 10 seconds, and then going back to do it maybe 2, maybe even 3 times in a row. This is not necessary in a normal, low risk, low intervention birth, because as the baby descends down into the pelvis, the baby's head is going to be pressing down on a plexus of nerves. And these nerves are going to be sending a message to the maternal body to start the urge to bear down. Meaning your urge to push is happening because your baby's head is pushing up against a very specific set of nerve endings. It means you don't have to say consciously, I'm going to decide to start pushing right now, because your body is already wired to tell you exactly when to push. And if you've ever had a baby before, you know, if you've had an undisturbed low intervention birth, you know that this urge to push is uncontrollable. This is why we see people who are in the car or on the side of the road or walking into the hospital and they have their baby bloop right there, and you've got people saying, no, don't push, don't push, don't push, don't push, wait for the doctor, right? Wait till you get to the hospital. And it's uncontrollable. If it was controllable, we wouldn't be pushing. So you were biologically wired to push exactly when your baby and your body is ready. Now, following along with your body's natural rhythms and urges also sets you up to experience the fetal ejection reflex. And that happens when you are not stressed out, when you're in a calm and safe environment, and you can essentially feel safe and relaxed. What happens is, as the baby's head presses down on those nerves, it is a feedback loop. So the baby is pressing down on the nerves, which is sending a signal to the maternal body, and the maternal body is bearing down, the uterus is contracting, and everything is happening in sync. And as this feedback loop keeps going, baby pressing down, uterus contracting, more oxytocin in the brain is being released. There's a buildup and a buildup and a buildup, and it's very similar to sex. It's very similar to all of the sensations that come into play when you have an orgasm, right? You don't have an orgasm from just one, interaction of the penis and the vagina. You have an orgasm from multiple interactions. Y'all get what I'm saying, right? It takes time to reach that climax. And so in birth, it is so very similar. The feedback loop keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger until there's enough oxytocin built up where the uterus contracts about 2 or 3 times and it literally expels the baby on its own. Again, this is how people end up having babies in their car, and it's uncontrollable. Trust me when I say nobody wants to have a baby in the car. So it's happening because the natural biological mechanisms are in place to support the fetal ejection reflex. Now, once the fetal ejection reflex is in play, essentially you're looking at 2 or 3 really big, strong, powerful contractions, uncontrollable contractions. This is not something that the mother is really in control of. If you've ever seen it, the whole body kind of seizes and the baby gets pushed out. So the takeaway is you do not need to consciously and forcefully push your baby out. It's the same way you do not have to focus on dilating your cervix. No doctor comes into the room and says, okay, are you ready to get 10 centimeters dilated? All right, let's go. You don't see that. Why? Because the body knows how to get to 10 centimeters or however many centimeters dilated in order to release this baby. Just like your body knows how to get the baby out. Here are a few quick tips to make your pushing stage a little bit more biological friendly and to support the normal processes of the body. Number 1, keep your mouth open. When you relax the mouth, you relax everything that's connected to the mouth. In your vaginal canal, your uterus, your cervix, all of that is interconnected. So keep your mouth open, and instead of holding your breath, breathe. You can do a J breath, which is when you breathe in and you imagine that your breath is kind of creating this J shape. I would also advise to feel the contraction, but don't necessarily consciously push. If you feel your body urging to push, go with it. Don't fight it. But if you don't feel that urge to really bear down, then just breathe through it. Do not, tense up all of your muscles. Allow your body to do the work. And then, of course, communicate with your provider that you would like to do mother or birthing person centered pushing, meaning you don't want directed pushing. You want to direct yourself. You want your body to direct. You don't want someone outside of your body to direct the pushing stage. And of course, every birth is going to have its own unique twists and turns and its own caveats. So for a lot of women, for a lot of birthing people, they will be able to experience the fetal ejection reflex, and for others, it may not be in your cards. So also remember to remain open. Again, if your baby is in a funky position, or if there's any other variation going on, you may in fact have to push in those scenarios. But again, in a non-emergency, normal physiological birth, it is so much better to allow your body to do the work on its own and get out of your body's way. So that's all for this video. If you would like to get more into the fundamental issues of directed pushing, like why it is psychologically and socially interconnected with patriarchy and our misunderstandings of the body, I would love to make a kind of part 2 video to this. Just let me know down in the comments. And if you learned anything from this video, or if you liked anything in this video, you know what to do. Hit the button, okay? And make sure you subscribe, because about 50 to 60% of y'all watch my videos don't be subscribing. I see you. And now you see me, and now we see each other. So just subscribe, because now it's getting awkward. I'm gonna see y'all in the next video.